Hi, Marilyn. Okay, we will get started. It looks like we are all here and settled in. I'm Ginger Rothhaas, and Brooke, our beautiful leader, and her mother Judy are with Brooke's brother Chase, Judy's son Chase. And so I just want to open with a word of prayer. Chase is transitioning. He's been fighting a courageous, hard battle with ALS for a year. Chase is 54, I believe, and just was a superior athlete and top of his game, and then diagnosed with ALS and has just been trapped in a body that continues to decline all year. And his wife Anne and their children, Elsa and Avery and Ben, are just fantastic human beings and have walked this walk with him. So let's open with a prayer for Chase and his family. Oh, dear gracious God, hold your precious child Chase in your arms today as he transitions back to you. Allow this to be a journey full of peace and light and lifting and openness, and leaving his earthly body and becoming a beautiful spirit that returns to you. You sent him to us. He had a beautiful human experience, and now he returns his soul to you. God, be with Anne and Elsa and Avery and Ben and Brooke and Tyler and Judy and Bill, as all of them hold vigil around his bed and usher him back to you. Their hearts are breaking. They're feeling lost. Help them feel a peace beyond understanding. Be with each of them as they grieve the loss of their precious, precious Chase. Hold us each as we continue to try to serve you and figure out what it means to be human. Bless all of the people in this room, that you brought us all together. Our paths have all crossed so that we may do life side by side. Be with all of us and help us create the kingdom of God on earth. In your holy name, amen. Yeah, so if you can, reach out to Brooke and Judy and let them know your love for them. Hello, everyone. Come on in. Because this is why we do life together. The hard and the joy and all of it. Yeah. Yeah. So today we're talking about another hard topic, forgiveness. And last month we looked at internal family systems and this idea that there are many, many parts of ourselves and they come up at different times. Some of these parts are hurt parts. Some of these parts are protector parts, which jump in to protect the hurt. Some of these parts are what we call firefighters that say, let's not feel the pain. Let's just extinguish it. Let's run away from it. Let's avoid at all costs. And as our beloved Judy and Brooke are going through so much pain, it helps us get a little bit more in touch with those vulnerable parts of us too. When people we love are vulnerable, we are too. And so we will continue to use that IFS language of these are just parts of me. There's a hurting part coming up right now. What does she need? And sometimes there's a protector part coming up, and what does she need? And so forgiveness is one of those parts of us that bring up a lot of protector parts and a lot of hurt parts in us. We all struggle with forgiveness. We all have stories of this. And I'm going to try to offer some just perspective. I don't have answers. I said last time as the little teaser for this that sometimes I question if we really have to forgive and how we use that word and what does that mean, and we all interpret it differently. And when I was in seminary, And we would look at biblical teachings and other religions' teachings on forgiveness. I often thought the theme of the teachings were free yourself, forgive so that you are free. The Bible is really one story after another of liberation. There was physical liberation of the slaves. There's also a ton of figurative liberation in the stories of the Bible. Free yourself from shame. Free yourself from who society says you are. Free yourself from your past. Free yourself from the stories you tell yourself. I read end to end, the Old Testament and the New Testament in that lens, and see so many liberation stories that's where then I see teachings like forgiveness as a liberation story more than something we're doing wrong. So it's like whether you forgive or not, that's not a right or a wrong. It's more what would bring you liberation from the story. So that's just food for thought. But this morning, Kate or Kenyon, will you?
We're running. I'm coming.
Okay, thank you. You're fine. I just realized the remote's not working this morning, so I need human assistance. So let's start with talking about what's hard about it. So yeah, this next slide. So on this slide, I just have 3 categories, and this is kind of how I've organized our time together today. We have forgiving others. We all kind of know how hard that is. We have another bucket of forgiving ourselves. And then there are other buckets, but just for the interest of time this morning, the third one I want to consider is when we are being forgiven or longing for forgiveness. So we have this external, I have to forgive somebody else. We have the internal, I have to forgive myself. And then we have this complicated layer of I hope you forgive me, which is a mix of forgiving myself and longing for your forgiveness. So just to begin, what comes up when you think about these 3 categories? What do you think which is the hardest? Which is the most complicated? Why are these things hard? Share with us what comes to mind as we begin this discussion.
I think forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we carry that always. We can kind of shove the others out of the way once in a while. But,
That's right.
But there, I think, are reminders all the time of things we're trying to forgive ourselves for.
Yes, Kim. Beautiful. So true. Yeah. What else comes to mind?
I think being forgiven feels very vulnerable because you might have done the work on your end to maybe accept the mistake or whatever it is that you
Yeah.
did, but there's no guarantee that the other person has.
Exactly.
So it seems very vulnerable.
It does. It does. You're getting a deep piece of this, Kenyon, which is trusting that I'm forgiven, right? Believing them. Yeah.
And being worthy of that. I think believing that you are worthy of that. I think that's the piece that would be difficult. Because if you haven't forgiven yourself, but you've been forgiven, there's a disconnect there.
Ooh, that's good. Or yeah, am I worthy of being forgiven? Totally.
And for me, forgiving others.
Yep.
I have a very good memory.
I love that, Cheryl. I remember. Yes, a good memory can be a curse. Yes, I know. It's hard to forget. That's right. And we might not need to. We might need to give ourselves permission that it's okay that I don't forget.
And I did hear that holding resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Yes, holding resentment. We're going to talk about resentment a little bit more this morning because that's a big piece of all of this is, yes, taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Yeah.
I also
Ann.
think with forgiving others, I can forgive them, but I don't see them in the same way. So in that sense, it's not a complete
Yep.
forgiveness, it's really hard to go back to the original relationship.
Can't go back.
Even though you're not holding resentment, you're not,
That's right.
but it's just there.
That's right. It's just there. I love all of your honesty, because it is. I don't believe we ever really can forget. We can't go back. There's new data in this story, right? There's new data about our relationship. Yeah. Yeah.
So, depending on the definition of forgiving, what she just stated, is that forgiving or isn't it?
I don't know, and this is why. So I played with starting with the definition of forgiveness, and I was like, says who, right? So I took it down, because I was like, I think we would all define it differently, and yeah, exactly. I think that's why this is such a hard thing, and that's why I get frustrated with the platitudes we've all grown up with in either faith-based settings or just what it means to be a good human is forgive people. What does that mean? Yeah, yes, but, yes. And help us with this stuff. We don't have these conversations like we get to have in here very often.
I think there are a couple of cliche-sounding statements that ring pretty true, though, whereas you can forgive, but you won't forget.
Right?
And time heals all wounds.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's so individual, right? Yes. For some of us, yeah, that has been true. For others, that hasn't been true. That's why all of these topics that we dive into in here are so rich, because we could each see things so differently based on our lens of our human experience. And that's why, do you remember that thing that circulated on social media? There were two things, like, do you hear this word or that word? And do you see the dress as blue or gold? Remember those? Those fascinate me, because I'll bring, next month we'll do one of those, if you haven't heard of it. But people are so sure of the way they see it. And the psychology and the research on that is that we see things, literally our eyes see things through our lens of experience. So I forget I'll get it right for next month, but if you see the gold dress, there is a reason you see the gold dress. If you see the blue dress, it's literally the cones in your eyes. Based on what if you've lived in a lot of daylight, if you've lived in a lot of darkness, there's all these things that explain that. It's fascinating. But those social media things, when they circulate, prove to me we will all have a different perspective on every single thing. And the beauty of our humanity is if we can hold space for that. But what we have watched in our country especially is that, no, I am right, you are wrong. And yet, gold dress or blue dress, we could fight all day, and we cannot believe somebody else sees it as a gold dress because it's so clearly a blue dress, right? Or vice versa. So I think that that social experiment helps me understand why we come at everything from a different perspective, and forgiveness is a huge one of those based on your life experience. If you've been hurt deeply, you will have a different experience than somebody who's kind of skated by without adversity. And that's why those platitudes are so tough, because somebody's sitting in the audience going, this is impossible, and somebody else is like, yeah, this is easy. Yeah.
I think too, when we finally do get to a position where we can forgive someone, I think it would be unnatural not to want to protect ourselves.
Exactly.
Going forward, just because we have been hurt, and that's a natural human instinct. I don't think that means you've not forgiven them.
Right.
But you're just trying to be wise going forward.
Exactly. Let's go to the next slide, Kate, because that's exactly where we're headed. So this next one is in the context of forgiving others. Let me turn this off. So here's our question to ponder. Can I forgive them without denying myself? And there's no right answer to this. It's more for us to all cook on it. So I think one of the reasons that forgiveness, just forgive them, feels so difficult is because it feels like if I forgive them, I'm denying my experience or my pain. I'm letting them off the hook for what they caused. And I think that's why we struggle with forgiveness, because it does feel like denying myself or denying my experience or my story. Am I supposed to just put everything I experienced on a shelf so that you are free? So that's one layer. The other layer is what your Anne and Kim are getting at of like, this is new data. So if I forget the data, I'm denying my pain and I'm denying that I need to protect myself. So that doesn't feel right. And this is why we struggle with things, because it's a soul gut reaction to this stuff. It's not a cerebral thinking, right? We can think our way through things, but we still carry this feeling and this like heaviness inside. The denying yourself is what causes the heaviness. You can think about this, let's see, if you just have an argument with a partner and you acquiesce, you're like, okay, fine, whatever, let's just let this go. You walk away from that with a gut grossness if you really start to tune into how you feel. Every time you acquiesce, if you tune in to your body, you're like, ugh. So that's what's going on with forgiveness too, I think, is if I forgive you like I'm supposed to, it really feels to me like I just denied my whole experience. And that's why we get blocked and stuck. So can you forgive without denying your experience? What do you think about that? Or how do we forgive and honor our experience at the same time?
I think it's a journey, because a
Good.
trust has been broken.
Yes.
And when a trust is broken, the other side of that relationship needs to earn that trust back. So I think through the process of forgiveness, I think you're not forgetting, you're risking yourself by continuing that relationship and giving that person an opportunity to earn back your trust.
Yep.
It's not a light switch.
Beautiful.
It's a journey.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, that rings so true. Shelby?
So, I guess I feel like sometimes, for when you choose to forgive in a situation and you have new data,
Yep.
it doesn't mean you will re-enter a relationship with that person or that organization.
That's
or
right.
That job or that whatever. Like, maybe you might not trust them again, which might be part of not stepping back into
Right.
relationship or interaction. But I guess I feel like there can still be forgiveness, like that letting go and like liberating yourself from that experience and that hurt
Yes.
and pain. And at the same time, like, given the information that you have or the experience, maybe it's not, you would be denying yourself by like, okay, I forgive them and I'm gonna, the forgive has to be giving them another opportunity to hurt you.
Right.
Or giving, what
Exactly.
I mean?
Yes.
Because I can think of some situations in my life where I feel like, if I'm going to define forgiveness as I'm liberated from it,
Yep.
that, I feel like I have forgiven some people and I'm not in relationship with them and it feels okay. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm gonna show them.
Right.
There's all this. Like I actually feel kind of free from it.
Good. Yes.
But based on what I know and
You're not re-entering the relationship.
Yeah, I do feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be denying myself.
Exactly.
That would be putting myself back into this situation, to get hurt based on that information. I don't think that's always the case. I think, obviously some people in some relationships there can be forgiveness.
Yep.
And, based on what you see or time or,
Mm-hmm.
that, maybe with that forgiveness in that situation, you're not denying yourself by trusting again or, I don't know.
exactly.
On mom that I
No,
I like
that's,
the word liberation.
like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, because it applies differently in different situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
totally.
I don't know.
I love that. And the freedom that you feel from forgiving, and yet I have a boundary that I am setting to protect myself. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
And with that, I have a situation, but it's actually my brother, where there's been some violence and, um, very hard feelings. And I know I'm better off without him
Yeah.
close to me.
Yeah.
But I wish him well
Yes,
from afar.
exactly.
From
Perfect.
afar.
That's beautiful. That is that kind of like sending with loving kindness of may you be well, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be happy, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I have peace. Exactly. That's such a beautiful space to live in, Cheryl. Yeah. Yeah, Lori?
Well, I just, in my own experience, this is kind of bold, but I feel like if I can't forgive, then I'm always going to be denying myself
Ah, good.
because it festers in me,
That's right.
and then you realize it's not even affecting the other person, and so all of a sudden you realize, okay, what am, so I mean, I know that's kind of bold, but
That's it. That's
how
it.
I feel in those situations, that for my own health, I have to figure out a way to forgive, and, that's through my faith and my relationship with God, that I have to, and it's a continual, I mean, you might think that you've forgiven.
Yeah.
And you move on, and then all of a sudden it pops up again,
Yes.
and the person may not have even done anything new to you, it just reappears again.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I guess I haven't really worked through this.
That's
So,
right.
But yeah, I think it's something that continues to fester
Yeah.
in me, and it's not harming the other person, so.
I love that take on deny. I deny myself if I don't forgive. That's a beautiful take on this, right? So we can see it both ways. Again, two perspectives, really beautiful. I can see that if I forgive, that feels like denying myself. Or I can see it as forgiving is actually the act of not denying myself. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Let's go to the next one, Kate. So, talking about resentment, I think resentment and forgiveness are very dear cousins to one another because resentment comes when my experience or my feelings or my time or my contribution are denied or ignored. You can use synonyms for denied if that word's not ringing with you. It could be ignored, overlooked, unacknowledged. All of those are synonyms for denying. But this I heard a spiritual teacher say this once. I can't remember where it came from, but I remember being in the seminar and this hit me. If I don't have boundaries, I will have resentment. If I have resentment, it's because I didn't have boundaries. And that, I probably heard that, 10 years ago maybe. And this has probably been one of the biggest truth bombs that's held up in my life throughout the 10 years of, I come back to that of, so when I have that gut feeling of like, you should probably have a boundary here, or you're giving more than you're getting, or whatever is coming up, I can now tell myself, you will have resentment, Ginger, if you continue this way. And it's true every time. And if I'm feeling resentment, I can almost always, I think I'm at 100% looking back and saying, yep, you didn't have a boundary. And now you have resentment. And so I think this is where we weave in with forgiveness. And you guys have articulated it beautifully this morning, that I got new data and I'm going to protect myself a little bit because of that data. Or I'm going to distance myself, or I'm having boundaries around protecting my soul, my heart, my time, whatever it is. But I think that sometimes the going back, like reverse engineering it is if I have resentment, it meant I didn't have a boundary. And then why didn't I have a boundary? And is this related to my difficulty with forgiving this person? Because we stay trapped, right? We stay trapped in this relationship when we're replaying it in our minds all the time, or when it pops back up to be healed some more and we think we've healed it. So speak to this. How does this apply in your own life, or what's coming to mind for you as we talk about resentment?
In life's journey, we develop as humans over time, and I think it takes a really long time to come to a place where we know ourselves well enough to know what those boundaries are, and they do change.
Exactly.
I think once we're in that place of confidence in who we are, it's much easier not to resent than it perhaps was in an earlier part of the journey.
Yep.
And I speak to my relationship with my mother,
Yeah.
which was always volatile.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was well into my 40s before I finally was comfortable and confident enough in who I was to be okay with who she was.
Yep.
And suddenly the controversy kind of drained away because my buttons could no longer be pushed.
Yes, exactly.
So I was comfortable and just let her know, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is who I'm going to be. I'm going to love you where you're at, but it would be much easier if we met in the middle.
Exactly.
And the relationship got a whole lot better after
Yeah.
that. So
Beautiful.
it didn't have its bumps in the road, but it had probably more to do with me at that moment, because I can't control who she is.
That's right.
It had more to do with me.
What a beautiful journey. Really beautiful journey. Yeah, exactly.
Because I had just almost the same kind of journey
Oh.
that you did, but I think it took longer because there was some resentment on my part. And,
Hurt and pain in the history. Yeah. Takes a lot to get past that.
yeah, it does.
Sure. That's that denying. If I just skim over the hurt and pain, that's denying myself. So that's why it takes time. You did it the hard way. You did the work to honor yourself.
And it's so logical when you reach that point. You can almost feel the tension draining away, and it's like, why didn't I figure this out
Oh, I
before?
know.
So I try and go to that place when I'm feeling resentment, and if I can, like, almost physically tell myself, I can't do anything about this, I can only do what I can do for me.
Yep.
If you can just grab a tiny piece of that, you can get some momentum,
Beautiful.
but it's hard.
Very.
Because sometimes didn't you want her to change?
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Still.
Yes, please. Everyone else change so I can remain the same. Yes. That would be awesome. Yes, Barbara. You nailed it. Yes.
I think
Yeah.
giving yourself permission to set boundaries
That's
is the challenge.
so true. So true. What I was playing with the next month, and I think based on this conversation, maybe we'll go this way, is that piece. How do you love yourself enough to protect yourself? And I've played with the order of things, like, okay, so knowing who you are comes first, and then self-compassion, and then boundaries. And every time I think I have kind of a linear thing, then I work with somebody who's like, oh, wait, this came first, or this. So I think for each of us, that journey has a different order, but you are speaking to such a truth that I do feel like boundaries comes later in the journey every time, because it requires some self-worth. It requires some age and street cred and life experience. It requires that I'm worth protecting, right? Because if I'm feeling like I'm unworthy and I am always the wrong one here, then boundaries don't make sense. It feels like I should keep giving and trying to be better and make you happy. So I do think boundaries is later in our journey. It's very hard to learn boundaries, in your teens. And I watch this with some of my teenagers. Like, like very clear example is always in intimacy, because a girl will say to me, it went further than I wanted it to. And this is always where I'm like, but you're worth protecting. And they are so caught up in what that other person's going to think, or it's going to be awkward, or they're going to be embarrassed, and it baffles me. And we've all been that young girl, and I was too. But it still baffles me that how is that not so clear? But the more I work with teens, the boundary piece just doesn't click until later in your life. You can just see it. It's a rare girl that's like, don't touch me, and can handle all that awkwardness and all the stuff that goes with it. And so we have to kind of empower our daughters, and maybe we'll move the needle a little, because I think it's generational. I think it's women submit to your men from generations ago, that we're still in our DNA somewhere is a little voice that says he should get what he wants. So I just think it's complicated, but you're hitting at something so true, is that there has to be a pretty solid foundation of self-worth before we enforce boundaries. Yeah.
I think we need to surround ourselves with people who validate us
Yeah.
for who we are, and that's when we start to feel comfortable with our boundaries.
Yep.
Like that guy on Saturday Night Live. Doggone it, you're worth it.
People like you.
Yes,
You're great, and people
yeah.
like you. Yes, exactly.
And that's hard to do until you're
Yeah.
a full-on adult.
It really is.
Because that's what kids are doing, is trying to gain acceptance from all their peers.
Exactly. That's more, and in neuroscience, you're hitting at literal brain development, that their limbic system, that acceptance, impulsive, emotional center, is way more developed than the prefrontal cortex, which is rational, boundary, have a plan, all of that stuff. So until they're 24, that's not even registering, and acceptance is everything. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been finding lately, though, that I feel like there's a step beyond developing boundaries, and I never passed through that successfully, because I'm still working on developing boundaries. But I think there is a step beyond it, which is, I'm thinking of, if anyone was listening to NPR on the way over, they did Steve Kraske was doing a kind of a forum on, time to pick up my son. I'm already here. On guns, and how politicized and polarizing that issue is in our country, and these people who'd done lots and lots and lots of research and discussions and forums said the one thing we came away with from all of it is that really, yes, you have some people on the very ends of the spectrum. They have dug in their heels. They have drawn boundaries that are so ironclad. But the vast majority of people, yes, they maybe have some boundaries, but they're loose enough that there's something that supersedes that, which is they just want what's best for everyone.
Yes, there you go.
And what some people think is best for everyone is that we all are able to have weapons in our homes to protect ourselves. They believe that's what's best for all, and that's why they want that. Other people think that what's best for all is that we get away from all the weapons and erase them. But there is commonality, and so for me, even like this morning and yesterday, I saw two things while I was driving. One was made me so mad, because my boundary is very firm for me. My children are going to be in safe seats in the car. They're going to be buckled in. My son keeps saying, when do I get a booster seat? Not until you're so many pounds, or until Dr. Ely says we can do it. And so I have a very firm boundary in my vehicles that children are going to be buckled in safely. And this morning at drop-off, there was a woman driving, and there were 2 or 3, I couldn't even tell how many children, were climbing around each other in the front seat, and they were tiny, tiny, tiny children. One was like on the console. They were in the front of the vehicle, and my boundary was really challenged there. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so wrong. This is wrong. Period. It's wrong. Call the police. I'm gonna take down their license number. And I was on it. But then I thought, I don't know, maybe she had just pulled up and said, guys, you're gonna be late, climb up here so you can open the door and just jump out, and all she had to do was turn in, and I don't know. So I think sometimes
Good.
that actually kind of goes back
Good.
to what we're saying about forgiveness. Sort of softening my boundaries is actually the wiser thing to do. In terms of, when I dig in my heels because I know I'm right. Sometimes that causes more stress, anxiety, conflict than it needs to.
For
and the things I
sure.
was certain of, like when I was a teenager.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
For
I
sure.
have big time boundaries. I'm an oldest child and I'm type A and I know this to be true. And that's sort of stupid sometimes.
So more or less walk in others' shoes a little bit more.
Yeah, and I channel Ginger all the time, and I'm like, what Ginger would say. Passion
I need to channel
for
Ginger.
myself,
Yes.
and then you know this more than any of us in this room, you do have more compassion for others. The
Amen.
person who gunned it and ran the red light yesterday was wildly dangerous, and I honked very loudly. I did, because that was my boundary. And he endangered other people, but I thought, well, maybe maybe he is about to have an accident in the car, because I have been there after my gallbladder came out. There are moments when I am speeding because there's going to be a problem. That's TMI, I'm sure, but there are reasons, and Tom has said this in sermons, there are reasons that people speed or forget a turn signal, or they're on their way to visit Chase.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not
Thinking,
concerned
right?
about a turn signal
That's
at
right.
that moment, and that's okay.
Right.
So my boundary needs to just relax on that, and
It's
that
beautiful.
can really help too, I think.
What I love in your story, Laura, is you saw your angst rising,
Yeah.
but you brought in compassion for that woman, and that's literally brain training. The more we can do that with ourselves, of like, because it's such a beautiful example. We've all been there, of like how it's really not about us. Nothing in that car, her car, was my business, right?
Right.
And yet it elevated your blood pressure. You went through all this stuff when really none of that was yours. But you saw that, and so of course your brain first fired, right? That's how our brains work. You saw a threat, I'm on it. That's your brain's job. So thank you, brain, for doing your job. However, we're going to do this differently, because we are going to bring in a lot of scenarios that we might not understand about why that's happening. And you beautifully shifted into compassion. And the reason you can do that is because you're doing this work of self-compassion, and you are thinking about what would somebody say about that. Like, you're doing that work, and it's changing your brain.
And that's Ginger.
Well, I'm honored.
You are in my brain.
I'm honored.
But it makes a difference.
It does.
Daily.
I'm honored to be part of that, because that is,
I want to say thank you.
that is so true, and you're experiencing the truth of it. It's so fun to see your brain change like that. It's so fun in that moment to like watch yourself have grace for this woman that you used to judge, right? Like it's a really great moment for you. And that's how we are more compassionate in the world. You did it.
So we really need to flip oftentimes the judgment switch to
Yes.
the compassion.
Yes, totally. That's it.
And I think we need buttons that say WWGS.
I think that all the time.
Oh, I'm saying yes, and then I'm like, oh wait, what's that stand for?
I think that I have this imaginary bracelet. I have an
Yeah.
imaginary bracelet that says WWGS. Also,
Let's stick with Jesus on that one.
I thought of you. I need to wear this every
Let's
day
stick
because
with-
this is my self-compassion.
Doing my best, exactly.
Doing my best.
So the woman in the car with all the children is doing her best too.
Yes, that's it.
If we could live like that
I know,
and let them do it their way,
Yeah.
and like, she's doing her best. God bless her.
I know.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
It's also a strong reminder that we make boundaries for ourselves, we don't make boundaries for others.
Exactly, Cheryl. Nailed it. That's what you were gonna say too. I think I'm glad that was clicking in our brains, because that's exactly right. So the angst comes when we make boundaries for that other people should live by, right? You should. There's that should. But exactly. Boundaries are more about, with the way I would like, there's a lot of, somebody was telling me a podcast yesterday that like of the misuse of the word boundaries, because I think we saw this in the Johnny Depp trial. I had clients my teens were super into that trial. So I was getting the play-by-play, but one of them, I'm speaking out of lane here because I'm not sure of the facts, but one of them was using boundaries as a punishment, right? And that is not how we do that. Boundaries, the accurate use of boundaries is that I'm protecting my soul, my heart, my energy, my time, my resources. That's a true application of boundaries, but that word's already getting hijacked, like all words do, and used to hurt people. So you're right. I am so glad you brought that up, Cheryl, of like, boundaries are about me. I cannot suggest to somebody else a boundary they should have. They have to define it. And this comes up a lot in our families. Like you might see kids not have boundaries or parents not have boundaries, and it frustrates you. Like you should have a boundary. You should tell that person no. That is their journey. That is not your journey, right? Byron Katie, who is a teacher I really like, her website is called thework.com. She has this inquiry that I think we worked with this a little bit last year with some of her work of like, is that thought true? Do I know for sure it's true? Did we talk about this? If not, we will. Okay, we might do a review. Anyway, I'm going to write that down. We'll do that in one of these months. But anyway, Byron Katie has this in her teachings. There is my business, your business, God's business. That's it. Which bucket does it fall in? Right? My business, your business, God's business. So for Laura, your beautiful, generous example that you gave us this morning is that her car is her business. My car is my business. How we're all operating, that's God's business. Right? And so it's a really helpful, that'll pop back into my brain sometimes when I'm getting out of my business into other people's business, is like, this is theirs, or God's, but it's not mine.
Okay, that sounds easier than it is. I'm thinking about Laura's example
Like
this
everything,
morning,
right?
And I'm thinking, you know what? I decide that's their business.
Yep,
And then they pull away and they have a wreck. And
Yep.
one of those children are killed.
yep.
Was that maybe my business?
I think that's where we have to, God's business, yes, and discern.
Okay.
And discern the real threat. So you were doing that. She's in a parking lot. It's not super dangerous. You were doing that. And that's the amazing thing with our brains. It's like that's happening in a split second, that filter. But you're right. This is where we get really tied up on social justice cases too, right? Of like, what's mine to do in this genocide that's happening? Or, right? What's mine to do in this horrible thing that's happening in humanity? And that's where, you're right. Nothing's as cut and dry as we think it is. So that's where we have to go, is this mine to do? Is this my business? Does it really have a conversation with God? Is this something you want me to get involved in? And that's where I think discerning, you use the word, is such a good word. Because we do have to kind of take a moment to discern, is this something I'm feeling called to do? Is there a nudge here to intervene? But you got to be good at that too, right? You got to practice that skill. So you're getting at all the complexities of being human, which I love. It's exhausting. Let's go to the next one, but we get to do it together. Okay, this one is on the forgive myself, and this one is just, I was trying to think of how to do this quickly. This is something I think that's just to put in your pocket and think about later, of like, what have I given myself a life sentence for? And in my own work on forgiveness, this is how I had to kind of get to a clarity of thinking about it, was that act, does it deserve a life sentence? Or have I paid my time? And I've punished myself enough. And it's time to be free of that. And so I use the kind of prison illustration or the legal system or whatever. I think our brain loves images, so come up with an image that works for you on this. But like, is that a life sentence? Most times it's not. I could probably say it's never. Because if we really are people of faith and we get second, third, 48 chances, then we would say, it's never a life sentence. If I do the repair work, if I redeem, if I correct my path, if I'm truly focused on changing my ways, then it's not a life sentence. And our prison system should be about redeeming an individual, rehabilitating an individual. It doesn't always work that way, but that's another talk. But so, do I deserve a life sentence, or can this be redeemed? Oh, have you guys given yourself life sentences? Yeah, we have. We've given if you let yourself think about it, you've given yourself a life sentence for something pretty small. And we need to release that. We need to free you of that.
I think if we have children, we've given ourselves a life sentence.
Yeah. True.
It's hard to not keep revisiting that,
True.
especially as they move into adulthood.
True. Like, give us an example, Kim.
Oh, when your kids are finding their way and making choices in life that you maybe don't agree with, you're like, okay, where did I mess up in the
Yep.
past?
That's what I thought you meant. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
Yes, but let's not give your life sentence. I mean, there are so many great parents whose children make choices their parents wouldn't want them to make. You created a human being, but they are a complex human being. And yes, you poured into them and you taught them and you launched them, but they are an independent unit making decisions. And I think that, like I used to blame myself for my son's anxiety. Like if I would have known all this stuff when he was little, he wouldn't have anxiety. That's not true. That's just self-torture. Because he's a highly sensitive, anxiously wired little being that has amazing gifts that come with that, but he also worries a lot. No matter how I raised him, that is who he was going to be. So did I contribute? Maybe, because I didn't know how to raise an anxious kid, but I can't give myself a life sentence for his anxiety, right? Yeah. And it may gift him in ways that we'll never know. Having an anxious mom may have been just what his system needed to desensitize him, right? And get him ready for the world. Who knows? Maybe it was all by design.
Yeah. Perfectionists have a hard time getting to that
Yeah.
kind of thinking.
Yeah. Well, there's another topic we should talk about. I'm taking notes today. We got a year of curriculum.
Going back to your kids though,
Yeah.
we have learned that their brains are not developed till they're 24.
I know.
So do we have any hope?
Yes, you do. Yes, you have lots of hope.
Teach them the right thing?
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Is it even?
You love them. You love them. And it will all be okay.
There's really not a single manual.
No.
Right. There's lots of them.
The only thing I know for sure is love them. Be their safety net. Let them have their journey. Love them for who they are.
Have these huge decisions.
I know.
When their brains not developed.
I know. But they are learning. That's the thing is like, I'm trying to think of a really benign thing. So they got up fast and their chair fell over. That's a learning experience. That's not anything you have done wrong to not equip them for, I should have told him to move slowly, right? No. So like, think of benign examples like that. Like they spill something because they're moving too fast. I should have told them not to move too fast or flail their arms around. That's their natural, they're being a kid and they're learning from these things. So like, let them learn and forgive yourself that I should have told them everything. I had a mom client who, I think she would probably share this with you too, but her child was going to college last year. Absolute freak out, like beyond rational thinking that she hadn't taught him everything he needed to know. And like she really, really felt responsible that I didn't teach him everything he needed to know. And it was just so interesting to watch her brain, because her brain was convincing her she had failed as a mother. So he doesn't know how to do laundry. He doesn't know how to pick up his room. He doesn't know, like, the peers will take care of that, right? Like, he'll get teased, he'll get pressure, he'll be stinky, whatever. His peers will take care of that. So I think that, you know, we do have to remember a lot of this is just a natural growth experience, and we are just the love. We're their center of love. But the things they're learning are beautiful things, and it hurts for us to watch, and we would love to protect them from all of it. But it's shaping them, and it's building resilience, and it's how their brains learn. It's all okay.
And I feel the need to say on my boys' behalf, they're actually okay.
Yeah, exactly, I know.
But there's a lot of little things I question.
Exactly. And I'm watching my son, who had a horrible year last year of anxiety, have a great year this year because he had to work through a bunch of junk, right? I would have loved to have saved him from that pain, but now I see, oh, wow, that's what you needed. It was really formative. Yeah. So, yes, there is hope. So just think about this life sentence thing. Think about it and see if you can free yourself from the sentences you've given yourself for the things. You've paid the price. Okay, the next one, yes. So you nodded it, you got to this one earlier too, of like, can I trust that you've forgiven me? So this is in that bucket of I screwed up, I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to do that again. But can I trust that you are not thinking about it all the time? My mistake. Can I trust that you really unconditionally love me? And I think you've mentioned this comes back to that self-worth and the forgiving yourself first. Bye, Laura. Thank you. What's involved in this one? So this is in the bucket of please forgive me. Yeah.
Making amends is a big part of this.
Yes.
Changing your behavior, letting the person know that you're aware how much you've hurt them,
Yeah.
or whatever the situation is. Maybe it's something that you've done, but acknowledging how much it hurt you
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
With all of it, making amends is such a huge part of it.
Beautiful. Yep. Good, Cheryl. Yeah. Yes.
I wonder if the other person knows that you've forgiven them.
Say more about that.
Well, so I'm just thinking of a situation where I almost feel like confronting this person over what they did.
Yeah.
They're not going to have the ability to have that introspection and see what they've done and evaluate it. And it's almost going to create more conflict, more issues.
Yes.
Like, can I just peacefully forgive
Let it
them
go.
and
Yes.
bring it up?
I think that's a discernment. I think that's really wise discernment. Lots of people do not have the ability to do introspection. And introspection is I can see what was going on within myself there, or I can reflect on how I behaved. That's introspection. And so I think you're accurately discerning this person may not have that ability, and therefore this is going to blow up rather than be peaceful. And in that one, yeah, you can't. I think we're gonna wrap up on the like what brings me the most peace. That's the path to take. So it's not about this person needs to learn their lesson or this person needs to be aware of what they've done. If it brings me peace to never bring this up, then that's the right answer.
But Ginger, I've been doing that for years with one sister.
Yeah.
And she continues to hurt me in
Okay.
the same way.
Okay.
Over and over and over. And I've always been a people pleaser.
Okay. Yeah.
That whole resentment thing, I just realized
Oh, yeah,
that's where I
Cynthia.
am with her.
Yes. Yes.
But she can be volatile. I don't want to get into it.
Yes. So then that is, you're already on it, Cynthia, that then it's going to require boundaries where I protect myself. Because I think that her behavior is not, this is the discernment. Her behavior is not going to change. This is your thinking, right? Like if I tell her, it's really not going to have an impact. But the fight will be ugly. Yes. So then, therefore, if this is the person she is, she's shown me for years, this is who she is, then how do I protect myself from who she is and what she does to me? And I think you're nailing it, that is the path. Yep. But I think the thing to also look at here is that piece of, am I denying myself by letting her get away with it? And that's another piece you have to honor. Because even if it blows up, can you trust that you can handle the volatility? You can handle the blow up. Like that's self-trust, because I can't continue denying myself. So the blow up is less worse than denying myself, right? Both are hard, both are difficult. Pick your difficult. So if I say nothing, I feel like a doormat. If I say something, it's going to blow up. Which one do I want to live with? Pick your hard there. Because it's not clear. We would each have a different, if we went around the room, we would each pick a different hand here. So for some of us, I can live with denying myself. That's okay. I don't care what she thinks. For some of us, I cannot keep denying myself. I have to do this. This is a hill I'll die on. Right? And that's your discernment. But both are hard.
Or not unlike my situation with my mom. You know, working toward a place where you're solid in who you are and understanding that she's never going to change and you have got to be okay with you. And then what she does will affect you less. I know, easier said than done.
Oh, yeah. It's so hard. Family stuff especially.
Yeah.
Family stuff especially. Yep.
I just labeled my sister as being consistently a.
Yeah, exactly.
So when she is that way, I go, well, as I say to my other sister.
That is who she is.
Always consistent. We know exactly what to expect.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm not setting a boundary, I'm sitting here wondering.
you're setting a boundary.
Yes.
I just figured it's not worth it.
Right.
I like that. Consistent. She's consistent. I like that because that is a way to help your brain remember it. I think part of what happens too in us, and I've seen this in myself and so many women I work with, especially women, is we have this hope that it's going to be different.
I know.
And I keep hoping this time, I'll use your sister, Cynthia, like this time I hope she'll see it. I hope she'll see this and behave differently. And that's where the suffering is the hoping it's going to be different. And if we can take this person for what she is.
She's 86. Come on.
Right? And that's the other thing. We're not going to change it. And actually, it's going to get worse as our brain shrinks. Likely those kinds of behaviors are less changeable, yes. But there's hope. But this is the hope. This is the hope is almost making it laughable. Like you are, like, yep, that's consistent. That's on brand. That's who she is. But hoping for it to be different. And Cynthia, you're longing for this relationship to be healed. And so that, of course you want that. That's beautiful. You're wanting a beautiful thing. It's grief when you realize it's never going to happen. And that's grief. And we need to honor the grief of that. Because this relationship I'd so hope to have with this family member is never going to happen. That's a death. That's a death of that's a death of what I wanted with this person. And that is grief. That's not too big of a word for that. It's grief. And so then once we kind of grieve it, then we can kind of move into this is who she is. How am I going to protect myself from her? The wishing it was different is really what keeps us suffering. So even if I broke my leg and I'm in recovery and I'm wishing I hadn't broken my leg, right? That's where my suffering is the wishing I hadn't broken my leg. I can't do anything about my leg is broken. The suffering comes when I wish it was different than it is. And that, I'm not saying it's easy, but that is I think there is a universal truth in that if I could accept, Ginger, you broke your leg and you're going to be here for 8 weeks. How are we going to make the best of this? I'm going to suffer a whole lot less than wishing that hadn't happened.
You almost need to channel that energy in a different direction.
Exactly. Good.
Into things that are helpful for you.
Yes.
As opposed to that wishing and hoping. Because it's just so hurtful.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it just doesn't change. It's like beating your head against the wall.
It is. We keep looping back to the pain. Yeah. That's right. Whew, that's another good topic. Okay. You guys are so awesome. I could go on forever with this group. Okay, let's see. So trusting that you're forgiven is multi-layered. I think the amends part is a big piece of it. I think the worthiness is a big piece. I think trusting that person, that they're not obsessing over this all the time. They really have let it go. Those are all the kind of intricacies. But if there's something you wish to be forgiven for, think about those things. How do I free myself? If they've freed me, how do I free myself? Right? And that's back to that life sentence thing too. Okay, the next one is, these are just the little takeaways on these things. So you summed all of these up really, really well today. So if I'm struggling to forgive them, the liberation is in setting myself free. I think we think I'm setting them free. That's not what we're doing. We're setting ourselves free. We might also be setting them free, but the intention of forgiving them is more about setting yourself free. And if that's your starting point, setting them free is icing on the cake. But if we start with setting them free, that feels like the denying of myself. Okay? So just as you kind of ponder all of these things, to set myself free, I forgive them, not to set them free. And it feels really like that sounds selfish, but I think I'm more interested in helping you with the how to, not the should. So we all know we should forgive. Okay, how do I do that? This is one of the starting points of that, is if I start from liberating myself from this story, then I naturally liberate them too. And now I'm doing what I was supposed to do. Okay, forgive myself. Here are the 3 C's I think about when I need to forgive myself. Curiosity helps me in like, why did you do that thing, Ginger, that you can't forgive yourself? And this is some of the tools I like on this, and I think we've done some of these, but I'll review them real quick, is like watching the movie of yourself. So picture yourself at that age, whatever it was. Let's say I did something in college that I struggled to forgive myself for. Then I will watch Ginger, the college era, right? And watch that and say, like, can I watch this movie like it's not me? And can I see where this woman is coming from and why she did what she did? And I can see her anxieties, and I can see her hang-ups, and I can see her, all the things going on in her. And I'm cheering her on that, yeah, you made a bad decision, but you can make better decisions after this. And I would watch her with curiosity instead of judgment. Right? So if you go to a movie and the female character screws up a few times, you want her to get on her path. You can see her potential. You're like, yeah, this is the plot that you screwed up, but man, it's going to turn and you're going to be awesome. You're cheering her on. Do the same thing for yourself. Right? So see why I did the thing. Oh, I see why you did that. Yeah, there's more to that story. You gave yourself a life sentence, but there were actually multiple players in that, and you were under a lot of pressure, and you made some bad choices, but you were also 19. I can see that differently than I did at the time, or that I've told that story to myself. So that's the curiosity piece. The compassion is then, I love you. I see why you did that. It wasn't your best moment. It wasn't a great choice. But I have compassion and love for you, and I'm watching you try to repair this. I'm watching you try to be a better person. I see it, and I'm on your team. I'm going to stop punishing you for that. That's what the compassion sounds like. And then the course correction is where we take responsibility. Yeah, I screwed up. but I'm going to do better because I don't like myself living as the screwed up version of me. My favorite self is the one who is on her path and has living with integrity and making good decisions. And so I'm going to course correct. That's the recipe for forgiving yourself. It's not just giving yourself a free pass of like, oh, I should have done that. I'm proud of that. No, we still have some course correction work to do. But that's the taking responsibility for it. That's how you forgive yourself, and as if it's so easy. 3 words. Yep, done. Okay, and then being forgiven. Can you trust that you're worthy of forgiveness? This comes back to our journeys as faithful women too. Can I trust that I'm a child of God and I really do live in grace? Can I accept all of that? Because I think what I realized in seminary is I was not fully accepting that. I would say all the right things and I would certainly believe it for everybody else, but then I really struggled to believe I'm unconditionally loved. Really? There's no conditions? I don't have to be a good person? Really? And so I think that's a journey for all of us in our faith and our self-development, is that, can I receive love? Can I receive unconditional love? Can I really trust that you have forgiven me? That's a journey in itself too. And then the last slide, Kate, thank you so much for advancing these today, is, okay, so I'm supposed to forgive. Am I supposed to forget? I don't know. You don't have to. It's your life journey. You get to do what you want to do. Like, take all the rules off. How does it feel to forgive or forget? If it doesn't feel right yet, then don't. Don't do something inauthentic just because you feel like you're supposed to. So this is the bottom line. Follow the path that is the most peaceful for your soul. If it feels like, you know what, it would be most peaceful if I can just forgive this thing, myself, them, whatever, then do that. If it feels like the most peaceful thing for my soul is, I think I need to hang on to this for a little bit longer. I think there's still some healing that I need to do, or there's a message I need to learn here that I haven't gotten yet. So no, I'm not ready. It feels peaceful to not forgive or forget. Then do that. That's okay. But trust yourself to give yourself the permission to do this your way. Do it your way. It's your life journey. It's between you and God is a loving, non-judgmental God. That may be part of the work too. Do you believe in a God that's keeping a scorecard? If so, that's going to land differently than a God who is full of grace and love and compassion for you and sees your potential and just wants you to live into it and is cheering you on. Right? So those are the layers of the work there, but take the path of peace, whatever that looks like for you, and the answers will appear. Yeah, so on that note, go about your day. Go get groceries, go to lunch. You guys are awesome. I love spending time with you. Thanks for going deep. Thanks for tackling hard stuff. This group tackles hard stuff so beautifully. You're special, special human beings. Thanks for sharing your stories.